Good morning and good afternoon. Welcome to another episode of Before Coffee. It is Monday, which means we are going to cover anything that happened over the weekend, which is nothing. That's right. Most of the news agencies out there just want to talk about Israel and Palestine, so we're going to be talking about not that. Because is there any news? If there's any news there, it's probably on social media and you've already seen it. So let's go ahead and get into our headlines here. Today on Before Coffee. This app uses AR, 3D sound, and camera to guide blind people around big cities.
And we talk about El Nino this winter.
EU confirms timeline for new border controls. Everything you need to know about the EES and the ETIS.
And on the Squeal of Fortune, we take one of our squealers who fell off the wheel a few weeks ago who has decided to squeal, Kenneth Cheeseborough.
Crossing cultures, how China and Europe mastered the sea.
Those stories and more, which is National Mole Day, October 23rd, 2023 on Before Coffee.
Okay, first news story of Monday of this week. This is from Natalie Hewitt on Euronews Next. A French startup is developing an app that helps people with visual impairment get around using high-precision GPS tracking and spatial 3D sound. When people who are blind or visually impaired try to move around a city like Paris, they can easily get lost to the minute they exit a subway station. A pair of young French students are working to tackle this problem by developing an augmented reality AR navigation app that identifies the most practical route for them and uses spatial sound, also known as 3D sound, to guide them in the right direction. We're trying to make something very simple where you get the 3D sound from the correct direction. You turn in that direction and the sound is coming from, and then you're good to go. Sonar Vision co-founder and CEO Nathan Dyax told Euronews Next. The app is currently under development and testing, but the young startup aims to make it available in 2023. The prototype works in Paris, but can pretty easily be deployed in other big European capitals, he said. The project has just been selected by his engineering school's startup incubator, 21st by Central Suboelic, which will provide help with testing, funding, and entrepreneurial coaching and support from its vast network of researchers and alumni. Sonar Vision will also have a spot at the Station F, the world's largest campus for startups located in Paris. There are already apps out there that alert the user of surrounding points of interest, such as Blind Square and Soundscape. But Sonar Vision's added value, he said, is a guide users from point A to point B like a super high-precision deep GPS. That's also highly intuitive. Mainstream wayfinding apps such as Google Maps and Apple Maps have not been designed to accommodate the needs of people who are visually impaired and are hard to use with screen readers, he said. One of the very frustrating problems with one of these products is precision, Dyax explained. GPS in cities can be good in times around 4 to 5 meter precision, but in the worst moments, which is at least 30% of the time, you get a 10 plus meter imprecision. That means that the GPS will tell you you've arrived at your bus stop, but you're actually on the other side of the street, and you still need to figure out a way to get to your actual bus stop, and you have no clue where it is. To address this, Sonar Vision uses the phone's camera to scan buildings using AR technology and compares them to Apple's database of scanned buildings for a given city. This allows us to precisely geo-track our users from anywhere from 20 centimeters to 1 meter precision, Dyax said, adding that this allowed the app to keep the user on the crossing and pavements while avoiding where possible stairs and construction areas. For the tech to work, all the users need is a headset and an iPhone with a camera pointed at the road. Though going forward, the camera could be part of AR glasses for more convenience. Your phone would be in your pocket and you'd have the glasses on your face, doing the seeing part and the 3D sound coming out of the branches, Dyax said. However, the app does not do any real-time obstacle detection and is only designed to be a complement to a white cane, a guide dog, or other devices that people with visual impairment use to get around. The tech to do that does not exist, however. LiDAR technology, a light detection and ranging, has the potential to help people who are visually impaired, he says. What it allows you to do is scan depth in the environment. We actually started working with LiDAR on an iPhone 12 Pro and have been able to develop a prototype that basically replaces the white cane. It allows us to detect obstacles, but not just obstacles on the floor, obstacles that are head level, at body level. It's really powerful stuff. Yeah, I've seen a couple of YouTube videos of visually impaired people where like a tree branch will like scare the hell out of them, right? Because their cane doesn't see a tree branch, and then a tree branch just hits them. They're like, ah, I hit somebody. Oh, it's just a tree. So please cut your tree branches off the road, people, because the blind people, they can't see them, and then it gives them a fright. They think they've freaking walked into a wall. The main reason Sonar Vision is not focusing on using LiDAR just yet, Dak said, is that the smartphone that features it, like the iPhone 12 Pro, are expensive, and Sonar Vision aims to make its tech as accessible as possible. Today, the most important feature that we work on is wayfinding. Accurate and affordable wayfinding is really one of the biggest problems that has not been resolved for people with visual impairment, he said. Alongside Sonar Vision, 21st by Central Supelec selected 10 other startups that aim to address the key societal and environmental challenges of this century. We have students who want to tackle these issues much more than before. Anita de Voicins, she's French, entrepreneurship director at Central Supelec, told Euronews Next. It's a generation that really wants to add purpose to the startup they're creating. So good for them, helping all those and I liked their stance that they want to help everybody, not just the people who can afford iPhone 12 Pros. I mean, if you can't afford a Ford, you're just gonna use the cane anyways. Canes, what are white canes? Some of them can be expensive, sure, but probably not as expensive as iPhone. So definitely the cheaper option there than getting a phone just to download an app so you can have a sonar basically to tell you where to walk. Well, that's the end of my story. So your story.
All right. Getting my glasses on. All right. And hot planet news, or as you would call it, the greenhouse effect news. This is from the Associated Press. The upcoming United States winter looks likely to be a bit low on snow and extremely cold outbreaks, with federal forecasts predicting the north to get warmer than normal and the south wetter and stormier. A strong El Nino heavily moderates and changes the storm tracks of what America is likely to face from December to February, with an added warming boost from climate change and record hot oceans. Officials at the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, said this month in releasing their winter outlook. The forecast warmth will likely turn some storms that would have dumped snow into rain in the northern tier. There's also some hope for snow lovers, with one of the two possible whopping nor'easters for the East Coast, said John Gottschalk.
Why did you say snow lovers so angrily? Snow lovers, It may sound like so angry at it. Yeah.
Operations branch at the chief of NOAA's Climate Prediction Center. Parts of the East Coast, particularly the Mid-Atlantic, may get more snow than normal because of that, he said. Most of the country is predicted to be warmer than normal, with that warmth stretching north from Tennessee, Missouri, Nebraska, and Nevada, along with nearly all of California. The rest of the nation's forecast is to be near normal, to have equal chances for warm, cold, or normal. I'm sorry, I should have ended the sentence there. Warm, cold, or normal. Period. NOAA doesn't predict any part of the U.S. to be cooler than normal this winter. The greatest odds for warmer than average conditions are Alaska, the Pacific Northwest, and northern New England. A similarly large southern swath of the country is predicted to be wetter. The forecast has added moisture stretches from Massachusetts down the East Coast along most of the South, below Tennessee, and extending west through Texas, Kansas, Colorado, Utah, Nevada, and most of California, but excluding good chunks of New Mexico and Arizona. Nope, you're going to stay dry, New Mexico and Arizona. The Great Lakes region and the furthest north parts of the nation, stretching from Lake Erie to eastern Washington, are forecast to be drier than normal. This is because of El Nino, which is a natural periodic warming of parts of the Pacific that changes weather patterns worldwide and generally heats up global temperatures. Gottschalk and other NOAA scientists said El Nino has its strongest effects, especially in the United States during the winter. That's when it sends the jet stream, which moves storm fronts on an unusual path that is dominated by warmer and wetter Pacific air plunging south. This means that More rain in the south and extra storminess in the late winter, Gottschalk said. El Nino often means unusual weather across the state of Florida because of the strong subtropical jet stream. Those changes in the jet stream often can bring storm along with the East Coast with moisture from Caribbean and Gulf of Mexico to get very juiced up and fall as heavy snow in big eastern cities, Gottschalk said. That depends on the timing of temperatures and other conditions. So it's not likely to happen more than a couple of times. But if the timing is right, these storms can really explode up the East Coast. He pointed to the Washington's paralyzing 2010 Snowmageddon storm that dumped more than 2 feet in the capital region during an El Nino. Normally, the South gets not just wetter, but cooler during an El Nino, but Gottschalk said the warmer ocean temperatures and record hot summer temperatures led forecasters to ditch a cooler outlook. NOAA scientists said climate change is an added factor in their forecasts, especially with the winter being a season where the world sees some of the most warming above old normals, from the burning of coal, oil, and natural gas winter in the lower 48. Meteorologists outside NOAA see this winter playing out somewhat similarly. So there's a whole bunch more, but it kind of just sums up the old El Nino phenomenon.
Yeah, we talk about it. It seems every 6 months we talk about it, I think.
Winter in the United States. All right, there you are.
Okay.
Story.
In our next story, we will be looking at the new EU border controls. I had no idea this was happening, so this is definitely news to me that they're changing how they're doing the border controls. This is from Angela Simons on Euronews Travel. A new timeline for EU's post-Brexit entry-exit system, EES, has officially been endorsed and been confirmed by EU ministers. The EU post-Brexit entry-exit system was originally slated to launch in 2022. However, it has faced multiple setbacks. First, it was rescheduled for May 2023, when it was pushed back further until the end of the year. Okay, maybe we have talked about this. Very shortly, I think we talked about this. Now, EU officials have announced that some part of the system will be operational in late 2024. When it finally does come into force, non-EU travelers entering the Schengen area will be faced new border controls. Some have anticipated chaos when the schemes launch, while others are hopeful that the repeated delays will give countries enough time to prepare for the change. What is the EES? The entry-exit system will be automated registration systems for UK and other non-EU travelers who don't require a visa to enter the EU. Travelers will need to scan their passports or other travel document at a self-service kiosk each time they cross an EU external border. It will not apply to legal residents or those who have long-stay visas. The system will register the traveler's name, biometric data, and the day and place of entry and exit. Facial scans and fingerprint data will be retained for 3 years after each trip. It will apply when entering all EU member states apart from Cyprus and Ireland, as well as 4 non-EU countries in the Schengen area: Iceland, Liechtenstein, Norway, and Switzerland. The EES is being introduced to bolster border security and identify travelers who overstayed their permitted time in the Schengen area 90 days within a 180-day period. How has the travel industry reacted to these delays? Well, the airline industry has supported the delays as they give more time for preparations to be made. The EES will be a game changer for how the EU borders are managed. There are, however, a number of issues which must be resolved to ensure a smooth rollout and operation of the new system so that air passengers do not face disruptions. A joint statement from the European Region of Air Council International, Airlines for Europe, and European Regions Airline Association and the International Air Transport Association say. The coalition pointed to a need for wider adoption and effective implementation of automation at national border crossing points by national authorities, funding by member states to ensure a sufficient number of trained staff and resources are deployed to manage the EU's external border, particularly at airports. They also said airlines and airports should be given sufficient resources to facilitate with the new rules. The organizations also said there is no need to be a public communications campaign to inform travelers of the change. Oh, there needs to be a public communication campaign to avoid trade. Okay, yeah, because I didn't even know this was happening until I read this article, and I live in Europe. The EES is connected to the European Travel Information and Authorization System, ETIAS. This new scheme obligates non-EU citizens who do not require an EU visa to gain travel authorization to enter the bloc. The visa waiver will be mandatory for anyone wishing to visit the Schengen area short term. The ETIAS was originally set to be operational from November 2023, which would be next month. Now, EU officials have endorsed a timeline that will see it come into operation in the first half of 2025, according to a news site, The Local. Travelers will be able to apply for the ETIAS online before their trip at a cost of €7. Once approved, the electronic travel authorization will be electronically linked to their passport and will last for 3 days. Why has the EES been delayed? Challenges with contractors meeting deadlines have been cited as a reason for pushing back the EES. Automated EES barriers need to be installed at all international land, maritime, and air borders in the Schengen area. Travelers will be able to register their details at a self-service kiosk on a mobile app in some countries, after which border guards or e-gates will complete the checks. Reports are that the EES will come into force between the third and fourth quarters of 2024. In the UK and elsewhere, there are concerns that the EES could increase delays at border checkpoints. In a European Council report released by nonprofit State Watch, various countries expressed concern over the EES implementation delays. They say the amount of time they will have to test the system prior to launch is rapidly decreasing. French authorities will operate the border checks at the UK's Port of Dover, Eurostar, and Eurotunnel. They are currently working with the UK government to minimize the system impact on border flows and traffic, but express concern about potential waiting times. Other countries are still working on implementation plans too. The European Commission has suggested that the system may be introduced in gradual, flexible ways to reduce the likelihood of waiting times at the borders. So there's your update there on what's going to be like for anybody traveling from the UK to Europe and anybody traveling from Europe to the UK, as they've officially set up their pointless border, because they're also an island, but
they're hassle state.
I get it. People are, security risks or whatever. What if spies? I have no idea. But I'm anti-border. Let's just make that clear. I think we should just be able to walk wherever the hell we want to walk. I understand why we can't, but I wish we lived in a world where you could just walk from one continent to another, or take a boat, or, take a plane. Who gives a shit? But unfortunately, we give a shit, so that's why we have to have borders. Your story.
Well, in England's case, in the UK case, they should just give Northern Ireland back to them. That's political nonsense. Makes no sense at a tiny little enclave. But other than that, England does have a natural border. It's the ocean and the sea. Anyway, on legal news in the United States, we are going to talk about Kenneth Cheeseborough, who pleaded guilty last Friday. This is from New York Times, Richard Fawcett and Ellen Fewer. Cheeseborough on Friday became the second lawyer in 2 days to plead guilty in criminal racketeering indictment also named defendant Jay Trump. Mr. Cheeseborough also agreed to cooperate with state prosecutors in Fulton County, Georgia. Actually, watched this one live on Friday. Who have accused him, Mr. Trump and 17 others, of conspiring to overturn the 2020 election. On Thursday, Sidney Powell made a similar deal and said she too would cooperate with prosecutors. Mr. Cheeseborough was accused of conspiring to create slates of fake electors to support Trump in Georgia and several other states won by President Biden. His lawyers had argued that he was merely offering legal counsel to his clients. Prosecutors contend that the attempts to seek the pro-Trump electors were part of an illegal scheme to help Trump in power, or to keep Trump in power. And Mr. Cheeseborough's cooperation considered valuable effort to prove their case. Mr. Cheeseborough pleaded guilty to a single felony charge of conspiracy and was sentenced to 5 years probation. He was originally charged with 7 felonies, including one charge under the state's racketeering law. Both Cheeseborough and Powell had exercised their right to speedy trial under Georgia law and had been preparing for jury selection to start on Monday, which is today. The jury trial date for Trump and the other remaining co-defendants remains unclear. For now, the formerly fast-moving Georgia case is now on pause. At the same time, Mr. Chesebro's plea has added a sense of momentum in favor of the Georgia prosecutors, although it is unclear Friday whether other defendants were considering plea deals. As part of the deal, Mr. Chesebro agreed to truthfully testify against the remaining co-defendants, as had Ms. Powell and Scott Hall, an Atlanta bail bondsman who was the first to accept the plea deal in the case in late September. Mr. Chesebro has agreed to turn over documents and other evidence relevant to the case. The 2 consecutive plea deals spell only bad news for Trump and his 15 remaining co-defendants, including Rudy Giuliani and former personal lawyer Mark Meadows, his former personal lawyer, and Mark Meadows, his former White House chief of staff. Emails obtained by New York Times show that Mr. Chesebro is considering not only the legality of various maneuvers related to the electors' scheme in the weeks after the election, but also their political ramifications, potentially undercutting arguments that he was merely offering legal advice. On one such email chain included messages from John Eastman, another conservative lawyer who has been charged in the Georgia case. On Friday, Mr. Chesebro appeared in a dark suit in the defense table at around noon, soon after several hundred potential jurors gathered on the 7th floor of the courthouse to fill out screening questionnaires ahead of his imminent trial. Judge Scott McAfee of Fulton County Superior Court told the prospective jurors that the trial was expected to last 4 or 5 months, and acknowledged that it was likely that they would be familiar with the case that had made international headlines. Prosecutors acknowledged in court last month that a deal would be offered to Mr. Chesebro, and ABC News reported this week that he rejected the deal in which he would plead guilty to a felony racketeering charge, a conviction that would have resulted in him losing his law license. But he pleaded guilty to a charge that does not automatically strip him of his license, and Mr. Chesebro's lawyer said he expects him to keep it. Mr. Chesebro is the first person with inside knowledge of the wide-ranging plan to create fake slates of the pro-Trump electors in the states that Trump actually lost, to have pleaded guilty and agreed to cooperate with authorities. He was identified, albeit not by name, as court conspirator number 5 in the federal election interference indictment that his special counsel Jack Smith filed against Trump in Washington. In that indictment, Mr. Chesebro is described as a lawyer who helped to craft and implement a plan to submit fraudulent slates of presidential electors to obstruct the certification process. The Washington indictment cited several emails in which Mr. Chesebro and other lawyers working on a fake elector scheme had expressed reservations about whether it was honest or even legal. It remains unclear how Mr. Chesebro's cooperation with the deal with prosecutors in Georgia might affect Mr. Smith's prosecution of Trump. If Mr. Chesebro takes a stand in Fulton County, Mr. Smith's prosecutors could, in theory, use this testimony against him should they ultimately decide to bring charges. So there's a few more paragraphs, but we got the gist of it. Chesebro taking the plea deal and avoiding prison. Her story.
Another squealer on our tally board.
For the wheel of steel.
Okay. In cultural news, let's look at the history of how China and Europe mastered the sea. This is from Paul Hackett on Euronews Culture. In the world of maritime history, the connection between China and Europe is a tale woven through centuries of exploration, trade, and innovation. In this episode of Crossing Cultures, we embark on a journey to uncover the rich maritime heritage that binds these two distant regions together. For millennia, China has embraced the sea as a vital conduit for trade and cultural exchange. The Maritime Silk Road, a network of maritime routes, was the lifeblood of this connectivity, enabling the transport of valuable goods such as tea and silk to far-flung corners of the globe. Navigating treacherous waters was a perilous endeavor, especially for vessels laden with heavy cargo. Chinese shipbuilders devised a revolutionary solution, the Fu ship. These ships designed watertight bulkhead technology, enhancing their resilience against storms and rough seas. In ancient times, on the Fujian coast, our ancestors lived on the sea and by the sea, says Zhang Guohui, a Fu ship model maker. Ships were basically the source of their livelihood, so they were constantly evolving, from the earliest rafts and canoes to Fu ships, designed for long voyages. Archaeological evidence reveals that as early as the Song Dynasty, the 10th to 13th centuries, merchant ships were employed bulkheads as practice still employed in modern shipbuilding. These partitions not only prevented complete flooding in case of an accident, but also facilitated cargo storage and stability. Go Hui explains that the name Fu ship partly derives from Fujian, the region where these ships were made, and the auspicious meaning of the Chinese character Fu signifies good luck. That sounds like, I love Chinese sometimes. Just like, here's multiple meanings for this word, and it all works out for this word. It also means good luck, your ship's not gonna sink. While modern steel-hulled vessels replaced the traditional Fu ships, Lin Peizong and his team in 2020 undertook the remarkable task of constructing a full-scale replica of a Ming Dynasty-era Fu ship. These endeavors rekindled the spirit of ancient maritime exploration. I've been a sailor for 9 years. I inherited the technique of creating watertight compartments. For those of us who live on the sea, the Fu ships are our home. My dream is to sail the maritime Silk Road with a Fu ship, Haizong said. If the Fu ship took China to the world, the now Victoria quite literally went around it. In 1519, Portuguese explorer Ferdinand Magellan embarked on arguably the greatest sea voyage ever undertaken, setting sail from Seville in a 5-ship flotilla, and his mission on behalf of the Spanish crown was to find a western route to the Moluccas, or Spice Islands, in modern-day Indonesia. Forging across the vast Pacific Ocean, starvation and scurvy set in. The expedition didn't make landfall for almost 100 days. What lay ahead was a grueling 3-year journey marked by mutiny, murder, and ultimately his death. It was a perilous journey across the Pacific. The crew faced daunting challenges, including starvation and scurvy, during their 100-day voyage across the Pacific Ocean. Life on board the now Victoria was grim, with limited access to fresh water and fruits. A lot of them did not survive. They underestimated the size of the Pacific Ocean, so they were not so sufficiently equipped for the crossing, explains Javier Juan Polo, first mate on the now Victoria. Also, some of them were trapped, captured or killed by natives or the Portuguese. Upon reaching the Philippines, Magellan was killed in battle with the local tribe, so he made it to land and then he just died by, I guess, mucking up some sort of diplomacy. I'm not here to hurt you, pulls out gun. Get him! The expedition then fell into the hands of Juan Sebastian Elcano, who led and passed on with the voyage. Elcano managed to complete the circumnavigation by sailing the now Victoria alone across the Indian Ocean and around Africa's Cape of Good Hope, returning to Spain with a cargo of spices. And somehow they completely missed South America? Or they didn't miss South America and they just stopped there? I'm seeing a map of the trail they went, and I guess they, for some reason, instead of going straight, they suddenly went south, like super south. Instead of going straight across, they went south. So maybe they already knew South America was there. Well, we may never know, because I guess he died in the Philippines. So we have no. At some point, they just went south. It's funny because he was not even a captain at the beginning of the expedition, and he took part in a mutiny against Magellan. He got promoted later on as a result of the crew decreasing, Javier explains. Of the 250 men who embarked on the voyage, only 18 returned on the now Victoria, but they had achieved a monumental feat. The journey introduced the Western world to the Pacific Ocean, new spices, new vital trade routes, while also revealing the true size of the Earth. So, China, I guess, never did anything like that. That was cool, because they didn't mention it. So China just stayed in China, and only Europeans decided to cross the Pacific Ocean and almost die to get back.
What was this?
Sorry?
What years were this happening? What years is it?
I don't even think it gave me the year. Let me look. 1519 is when they set out. So, yeah, 1500s. And China
this day history.
Yeah.
In more
China
recent
had ships
times.
in the 10th and 13th centuries. Okay, your story.
In In more recent times, this day in history, we have 1925. They're starting this basically less than 100 years ago for a change. American comedian Johnny Carson and host of The Tonight Show was born on this day, 1925. 1941, the Disney animated classic Dumbo had its world premiere. In 1942, the British, led by Field Marshal Bernard Law Montgomery, launched successful infantry attack against the Germans in El Alamein, Egypt during World War II. 1944, on this day, during World War II, of course, U.S. forces under the leadership of Admiral William F. Halsey commenced a decisive air and sea battle against the Japanese in the central Philippine island of Leyte. We were just talking about the Philippines. And on this day, 1956, the International Atomic Energy Agency was created with the purpose of increasing the contribution of atomic energy to world peace. Well, there you go. Atomic energy and world peace, kind of working against each other, no? 1956, the Hungarian Revolution began with a massive demonstration in Budapest. So the Hungarians had had enough. Also having enough in 1998 was American singer Britney Spears released a single, Baby One More Time, which, accompanied by the Lolita-like music video, became a huge hit and helped make her a pop star. Really? I didn't know she got famous off that one song. Leave Britney alone, okay? Just 2001, Apple introduced the iPod, a portable media player that became one of the most successful and revolutionary products of the early 2000s. 2003, Sung Mai-ling, the second wife of the nationalist Chinese President Chiang Kai-shek and powerful political figure in her own right, died at the age of 106. She got 106 years. 106. What'd you do with them last 40? And I'll go, wow, I'm really like, think about that. I'm 60. She got another 46 years beyond me. That's just mind-boggling to me. To me, anyway. I don't know about anybody else. Our featured event was in 1983. U.S. and French troops attacked in Beirut. On this day, that's right, on this day in 1983, suicide bombers drove truckloads of high explosives into the barracks of U.S. Marines and French paratroopers in Beirut, killing 241 U.S. servicemen and 58 trained French troops. And famously, they don't tell you, is Ronald Reagan had our troops go get off a boat, go sit on land, and guard an area, and they had no ammunition in their guns. Yeah, no ammunition. So when the guy ran the gate, they just click, 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 and he just kept going. Yeah, and Reagan gets all kinds of credit for being such a great leader. That was a brilliant maneuver there. Pele was born in this, died on this day, October 20th. I'm sorry, he didn't die on this day. He was born on this day, October 23rd, 1940. So happy birthday to Pele. He passed away last year, December 29th, at age 82. So happy birthday to Pele anyway. Also, Doug Flutie's birthday. He was born in 1962, American football player. Nancy Grace, American legal commentator, was born on this day in 1959. You've seen her, how would you call it, a menacing scowl on TV. She's usually narrating one of them cases about disappearing white girls. In 1954, Ang Lee was born, Taiwan-born film director. 1942, American author Michael Crichton was born, and we already covered Pele's birthday. And what day is it today besides National Mole Day? Is National Horror Movie Day. So it's the right month for that, October. It's National Boston Cream Pie Day. If you're horrified by Boston cream pies, do not go anywhere today. Swallows depart from San Juan Capistrano today. San Juan Capistrano, famously on the coast of California between Los Angeles and San Diego. It's also National Mole Day, which is actually not about moles on your face. So we're going to have to cover that in a second.
That's so sad.
National Talk Show Host Day. It's not national. It is National TV Talk Show Host Day, probably because it's Johnny Carson's birthday. Think about it that way. And it's also National iPod Day, where we just talked about that being invented. Now we'll figure out what mole is. I remember this number. National Mole Day. eliminate any visions of burrowing creature celebration meal. National Mole Day recognizes a special number in chemistry. Chemists and chemistry students mark here. More specifically, the celebrations take place between 6:02 a.m. and 6:02 p.m. in the U.S. The time and date are written 6:02:10/23. The time and date arrived from Avogadro's number. Avogadro's number is approximately 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd power, hence defining the number of particles, atoms, and molecules in 1 mole of substance. So there you go. About the mole on your butt. It's about the mole in chemistry. That's it.
That's it. Wow. Well, this has been Allison here. Disappointed that it's not about moles on your face. I guess I'll just cover this because it's inappropriate. I guess mole minute already happened because it's what 6:53 now for you. So we were.
No. It's between. It goes for 12 hours.
Oh, okay. Okay.
We send 6:02 and 6:02.
So we're in the mole right now.
We're in the mole.
We're in the mole. Okay. Well, I'll be sitting here in the mole, here from the Netherlands, and we will see you tomorrow for Good News Tuesday, where we'll try to find the good stuff that's happening out there in the world.
This is the show that cares more. It cares more. It cares 6.2 times 10 to the power 23 about the news. On October 23rd, 2023, 10/23/23 on Before Coffee.
Be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and notify buttons, and follow our other channels, Toxic Alley, History of Gravy, and Scratchy Old Records.